The content in this podcast is fully AI generated based on real news articles. Listener discretion is advised. For more detailed information and the original context, please refer to the links provided in the show notes, which direct you to the news articles this podcast is based on. Enjoy the show.
Welcome, tech enthusiasts, to episode 29 of our AI Tech News podcast. I'm your host, John, and I'm thrilled to have our brilliant co-hosts with us today. Joanne, Jessica, great to have you both here.
Thanks, John. Excited to dive into today's AI developments.
Likewise. My tech brain is buzzing with anticipation.
Let's kick things off with some exciting news from OpenAI. According to Tom's Guide, OpenAI has shared a new demo of GPT-4o's advanced voice capabilities, specifically its ability to teach languages. Jessica, what can you tell us about this?
Well, John, it's quite fascinating. OpenAI has been teasing us with insights into what we can expect from their advanced voice features. While they won't be rolling these out in ChatGPT until later this year, they've showcased GPT-4o's impressive linguistic skills, particularly in teaching Portuguese.
That sounds intriguing. Can you elaborate on what makes this demo special?
Of course, Joanne. The key aspect here is that GPT-4o is natively speech-to-speech. Unlike previous models that convert speech to text and back again, GPT-4o understands speech naturally. This allows for some exciting features, including working across multiple languages and even adjusting accents, speed, and tone.
That's quite impressive. So how does this translate into language teaching?
Well, John, in the demo video shared by OpenAI, they showed a native English speaker trying to learn Portuguese and a Spanish speaker with basic Portuguese skills using ChatGPT to improve. The AI could slow down, explain terms, and even provide feedback on pronunciation and accent.
That's incredible. It's like having a personal language tutor available 24/7. But I'm curious, how does this compare to current voice models?
Great question, Joanne. The current voice models are already quite helpful, but GPT-4o takes it to another level. Its native speech capabilities allow it to listen to what you're saying, analyze your pronunciation and accent, and offer direct feedback based on what it's heard, rather than just assessing a transcript.
That's fascinating. It seems like this could revolutionize language learning. Are there any other capabilities of GPT-4o that were mentioned in the article?
Yes, John. The article mentions that GPT-4o also has impressive reasoning and problem-solving capabilities. This means it can identify less obvious mistakes in language use. Additionally, there have been other demos showing GPT-4o creating sound effects while telling stories and using multiple different voices.
Wow, it sounds like GPT-4o is quite versatile. Did the article mention any other applications besides language learning?
Indeed, Joanne. The article briefly mentioned a demo where GPT-4o was used as a math teacher. In this video, the AI was working on an iPad with screen sharing, providing advice and information on various aspects of math problems.
It seems like OpenAI is making significant strides in AI capabilities. Jessica, in your expert opinion, how significant is this development in the field of AI?
Well, John, according to the article, this advanced voice mode and the ability to understand speech natively is being hailed as one of the most significant leaps in artificial intelligence since OpenAI introduced the chat interface for GPT-3 back in November 2022. It's potentially a game changer in how we interact with AI systems.
That's truly exciting. I can't wait to see how this technology develops further and what impact it might have on various industries.
I couldn't agree more, Joanne. It's certainly an exciting time in the world of AI. Well, that wraps up our discussion on OpenAI's GPT-4o advanced voice demo. Next up, we'll be diving into some news from Google about their next generation of open models. Stay tuned. Welcome back, listeners. We've got some exciting news from Google to discuss. According to the Keyword, Google's official product and technology news blog, they've just launched Gemma 2, their next generation of open models. Joanne, what can you tell us about this?
Well, John, it's quite an interesting development. Google has officially released Gemma 2 to researchers and developers worldwide. It's part of their ongoing effort to make AI tools more accessible to everyone.
That's right, Joanne. And it's worth noting that this release follows the introduction of the original Gemma family earlier this year. Google's aim is to address some of humanity's most pressing problems by democratizing AI tools.
Ah, that's a noble goal. Can you tell us more about specifics of Gemma 2? What makes it stand out?
Certainly, John. Gemma 2 comes in two sizes, a 9 billion parameter model and a 27 billion parameter model. What's impressive is that Google claims these models are not only higher performing but also more efficient at inference than the first generation.
That sounds promising, but what does that mean in practical terms?
Great question, Joanne. To put it in perspective, the 27B model is said to offer competitive alternatives to models more than twice its size. This level of performance was only possible with proprietary models as recently as December.
That's quite a leap in a short time. Are there any implications for hardware requirements?
Yes, there are. One of the key advantages of Gemma 2 is that it can run on a single NVIDIA H100 Tensor Core GPU or TPU host. This significantly reduces deployment costs, making it more accessible for researchers and developers.
That's impressive. Did Google mention anything about the architecture of Gemma 2?
Indeed, they did. Google built Gemma 2 on a redesigned architecture, specifically engineered for both exceptional performance and inference efficiency. They claim it sets a new open model standard in these areas.
Fascinating. Now, I noticed the article mentioned some safety advancements. Can you elaborate on that, Jessica?
Certainly, John. While the article doesn't go into specifics, it does mention that Gemma 2 comes with significant safety advancements built in. This is crucial as AI models become more powerful and widely accessible.
Speaking of accessibility, did Google mention any partnerships or integrations for Gemma 2?
Yes, they did, Joanne. Google has integrated Gemma 2 with partners like Hugging Face, NVIDIA, and Ollama. This should make it easier for developers to access and work with the model.
It sounds like Google is really pushing to make AI more accessible and efficient. Jessica, in your expert opinion, what impact do you think this could have on the AI landscape?
Well, John, I think this could be quite significant. By making powerful models more accessible and efficient, Google is lowering the barrier to entry for AI development. This could lead to more diverse applications of AI and potentially accelerate innovation in the field.
That's an exciting prospect. Do you think we'll see more companies following suit with open models?
It's certainly possible, Joanne. As the AI field becomes more competitive, we might see more companies open sourcing their models to gain developer mindshare and accelerate progress. However, it's a delicate balance between openness and protecting proprietary technology.
Fascinating insights, Jessica and Joanne. It's clear that Gemma 2 represents a significant step forward in OpenAI models. We'll definitely be keeping an eye on how this develops. Now, let's move on to our next topic. It seems we've got some news about smart glasses with GPT-4o integration. Stay tuned, listeners. Welcome back, tech enthusiasts. We've got some exciting news in the world of wearable AI. ZDNet reports that Solos has announced the world's first smart glasses with GPT-4o integration. Jessica, can you give us the lowdown on this?
Certainly, John. Solos has unveiled their newest smart glasses called Ergo Vision. What makes these glasses unique is that they're the first to incorporate GPT-4o and generative AI capable of analyzing visual input.
That sounds intriguing, but I have to ask, why would glasses need ChatGPT?
Well, Joanne, according to Solos, these glasses can provide real-time information based on what you're seeing. For instance, they can recognize people, objects, or landmarks, give walking directions, or even check prices of items you're looking at.
Fascinating. So it's like having Google Lens built right into your glasses.
That's a good comparison, John. But these glasses take it a step further. Users can capture photos hands-free and then ask for information about what they've captured. For example, you could check the next step in a recipe or ask where to purchase an item you've just seen.
That sounds incredibly useful. Can the glasses handle complex queries?
Indeed they can, Joanne. The Ergo Vision is capable of answering multiple queries at once. Solos gave an example in their press announcement. What am I looking at, and how much does it cost? Is there a better price somewhere else?
That's impressive. Now I'm curious about the design. Are these glasses customizable at all?
Good question, John. The Ergo Vision will feature swappable frames, allowing users to choose between smart glasses with a front camera or without one. This gives users some flexibility in terms of functionality and privacy.
Speaking of privacy, how do these glasses handle notifications? I'd be worried about constant visual distractions.
Solos has thought of that, Joanne. The glasses come with a built-in LED notification light that gives a discrete flash for alerts. They suggest this could be useful in noisy environments where audio notifications might be missed, in quiet settings where you've turned off sound, or for users who are hard of hearing.
That's a thoughtful feature. Now, is this Solo's first venture into AI-powered smart glasses?
Actually, it's not their first, John. Solos unveiled the Ergo 3 smart glasses with ChatGPT at CES 2024 earlier this year. However, those glasses used audio for ChatGPT interactions, whereas the new Ergo Vision adds visual input capabilities.
This all sounds very futuristic. When can people get their hands on these glasses, and how much will they cost?
According to the article, the Ergo Vision will be available later this year. Specifically, 3 styles of LED-only frames are set for release in July with an MSRP of $249.99.
That's quite a competitive price point. Jessica, in your expert opinion, how do you think these glasses might impact the smart wearables market?
Well, John, I think this could be a significant development. By integrating GPT-4o and visual AI into wearable technology, Solos is pushing the boundaries of what's possible with smart glasses. It could potentially change how we interact with AI in our daily lives, making it more seamless and intuitive.
It's certainly exciting to see how AI is being integrated into wearable tech. I wonder how other companies like Meta with their Ray-Ban smart glasses will respond to this innovation.
That's a great point, Joanne. It looks like the competition in the smart glasses market is heating up. We'll definitely be keeping an eye on how this technology develops. Now let's move on to our next topic. It seems we have some news about Claude artifacts being hailed as the greatest innovation in AI this year. Stay tuned, listeners. Welcome back, tech enthusiasts. We've got some exciting news from the world of AI. According to Tom's Guide, Claude Artifacts is being hailed as the greatest innovation in AI this year. Jessica, can you give us an overview of what Claude Artifacts is?
Certainly, John. Claude Artifacts is a new feature launched by Anthropic alongside their Claude 3.5 Sonnet model. It allows Claude to share generated content in a dedicated window, which can include code for games, story outlines, and more.
That sounds interesting, but what makes it so innovative?
Well, Joanne, the key advantage is that artifacts don't sit within a message. This means you can ask Claude to iterate on a piece of code or text at any point in the conversation, even if it was generated at the start of the thread. It's particularly useful for substantial self-contained content over 15 lines long.
That does sound useful. Now, the article mentions some prompts to try with Claude Artifacts. Can you walk us through a couple of those?
Of course, John. The article suggests 5 prompts, but let's focus on a couple. One interesting prompt is to create an interactive mood board generator using React. This includes features for shuffling color palettes, adding or removing mood words, and generating a grid of random shapes in chosen colors.
That sounds fun. What about something more game-oriented?
They've got that covered too, Joanne. Another prompt is to create a simple 2D survival game using React and SVG graphics. It's a 10x10 grid-based game where players control a character, trying to avoid AI-controlled opponents and collect items to increase their score.
Fascinating. Are there any practical applications among these prompts?
Absolutely, John. One prompt suggests creating a virtual bookshelf app using React. It allows users to add books with details like title, author, and genre, and includes features for organizing and searching books. Another practical prompt is for a family tree builder, which lets users construct and visualize complex family structures.
These all sound quite complex. How difficult is it to use these prompts?
That's a good question, Joanne. According to the article, these prompts are designed to be simple enough to share, but detailed enough for Claude to understand and create something close to what's intended. However, it's worth noting that you might need to run some of the code locally to fully utilize all features.
Interesting. Now, Jessica, in your expert opinion, how significant do you think this Claude Artifacts feature is for the AI field?
I think it's quite significant, John. By allowing users to easily iterate on complex generated content, Claude Artifacts could potentially streamline the process of working with AI-generated code and content. It bridges the gap between conversation and creation in a way we haven't really seen before in chatbot interfaces.
That's fascinating. Do you think we'll see similar features from other AI companies soon?
It's certainly possible, Joanne. As AI becomes more integrated into creative and development processes, features like Claude Artifacts that make it easier to work with AI-generated content are likely to become increasingly valuable. I wouldn't be surprised if we see other companies developing similar capabilities.
It's an exciting time in AI development, that's for sure. Thank you, Jessica, for breaking that down for us. Now let's move on to our next topic. It seems we have some interesting perspectives from an MIT robotics pioneer on generative AI. Stay tuned, listeners. We have some intriguing insights from Rodney Brooks, a robotics pioneer from MIT, about the current state of generative AI. Jessica, can you give us an overview of who Rodney Brooks is and why his opinion matters?
Certainly, John. Rodney Brooks is a highly respected figure in the field of robotics and AI. He's the Panasonic Professor of Robotics Emeritus at MIT and has co-founded several key companies, including iRobot, Rethink Robotics, and Robust.ai. He also ran MIT's Computer Science and AI Laboratory for a decade. His track record and experience make his opinions on AI particularly noteworthy.
So what's Brooks' take on generative AI? It seems like everyone's raving about it these days.
Well, Joanne, Brooks actually thinks people are vastly overestimating generative AI's capabilities. While he acknowledges that it's impressive technology, he believes it's not as capable as many are suggesting. He emphasizes the need to be careful in how we evaluate these systems.
Interesting perspective. What's the main issue he sees with how people perceive generative AI?
Brooks points out that humans tend to overestimate AI's capabilities when they see it perform a task. We often generalize and assume the AI is competent in similar tasks, much like we would with a human. However, he stresses that generative AI is not human-like, and it's flawed to assign human capabilities to it.
Can you give us an example of how this misconception might play out in practice?
Sure, Joanne. Brooks shares an example from his current company, Robust.ai, which develops warehouse robotics systems. Someone suggested using an LLM to tell the warehouse robots where to go, thinking it would be efficient. However, Brooks argues this would actually slow things down. He says it's much simpler and faster to connect the robots directly to the warehouse management software's data stream.
So it's about using the right tool for the job. What other insights does Brooks offer about developing effective AI and robotic systems?
Brooks emphasizes the importance of solving solvable problems and integrating robots into environments that are already cleaned up or constrained. He uses warehouses as an example, where lighting is consistent, floors are clear, and there's little potential for malicious interference. He also stresses the importance of human-robot collaboration, designing robots for practical purposes rather than trying to mimic human form.
That makes sense. But what about the future? Doesn't AI keep improving exponentially?
That's an interesting point, Joanne. Brooks actually challenges this notion. He argues that there's a mistaken belief, partly due to Moore's law, that technology will always grow exponentially. He uses the iPod as an example to illustrate how tech doesn't always follow this pattern. He cautions against assuming that if ChatGPT 4 is impressive, ChatGPT 5, 6, and 7 will be exponentially better.
Fascinating perspective. Does Brooks see any potential future applications for generative AI in robotics?
Yes, he does mention one potential application, John. Brooks suggests that LLMs could potentially help with domestic robots, particularly in elder care situations where language interfaces might be useful. However, he emphasizes that the main challenges in robotics are often in control theory and other complex mathematical optimizations, not in language processing.
It sounds like Brooks is advocating for a more measured approach to AI development.
Exactly, Joanne. Brooks is essentially calling for a realistic assessment of AI's capabilities and limitations. He wants us to focus on practical applications and solvable problems, rather than getting carried away with hype or unrealistic expectations. It's a valuable perspective that encourages us to think critically about how we develop and deploy AI technologies.
Thank you, Jessica, for breaking down Brooks' insights for us. It's certainly food for thought as we continue to navigate the rapidly evolving world of AI and robotics. Now let's move on to our next topic about AI travel assistants. A fascinating article from the New York Times describes a journalist's experience using AI travel assistants to plan a trip to Norway. Jessica, can you give us an overview of this experiment?
Certainly, John. The journalists set out to test how well artificial intelligence could plan a 4-day trip to Norway, a place they had never visited before. They used 3 different AI planners, Vacay, Mindtrip, and ChatGPT, to create itineraries without doing any personal research.
That sounds interesting. How did these AI assistants perform?
Well, Joanne, the results were mixed. 2 of the AI assistants, Vacay and Mindtrip, were quite eager to learn more about the traveler to tailor their recommendations. They asked questions about travel preferences, budget, and whether the user preferred outdoor activities or cultural experiences. ChatGPT, on the other hand, didn't ask any personalization questions.
Interesting. Did the AI assistants come up with similar itineraries?
They did have some similarities, John. All the assistants suggested starting with a day in Oslo and then moving on to the fjord region. However, the journalist noted that they had to combine information from different assistants to create a well-rounded itinerary that went beyond a predictable list of sites.
How did these AI assistants compare to the ones the journalist had used before?
The journalist mentioned that these virtual planners were far more sophisticated than the simple ChatGPT interface they had used for a previous trip to Milan. Vacay and Mindtrip, in particular, offered more detailed features. Vacay's premium service included in-depth suggestions and booking links, while Mindtrip provided photos, Google reviews, and maps.
That sounds quite comprehensive. Were there any downsides or limitations to using these AI assistants?
Yes, there were a few issues. The journalist mentioned that ChatGPT repeatedly crashed during the planning stage, so they ended up not using it much. Also, while ChatGPT was the only one with a phone app, the information it provided was often outdated unless you paid for the premium version.
Did the AI assistants miss anything important about Norway?
Interestingly, the journalist noted that none of the AI assistants mentioned saunas or salmon, which are quite significant in Norwegian culture. This highlights that while AI can provide a good starting point, it might miss out on some cultural nuances or local specialties.
That's a crucial point. How did the AI assistants perform during the actual trip?
During the trip, both Vacay and Mindtrip were able to deliver instantaneous information via text and were always ready to provide more specific details if needed. This real-time assistance could be quite valuable for travelers in unfamiliar locations.
It sounds like these AI travel assistants have potential, but also some limitations. What's your take on this, Jessica?
You're right, Joanne. While these AI assistants show promise in providing quick, personalized travel suggestions and real-time information, they're not perfect. They can miss cultural nuances and may not always have the most up-to-date information. It seems they're best used as a starting point for travel planning, complemented by human research and local knowledge.
Excellent analysis, Jessica. It's fascinating to see how AI is being applied in the travel industry. Now let's move on to our next topic about AI beauty pageants. An intriguing article from CNN discusses the rise of AI beauty pageants and the quest for the perfect woman. Jessica, can you give us an overview of this new phenomenon?
Certainly, John. The article discusses the world's first AI beauty pageant called Miss AI, where the contestants are not real women, but AI-generated avatars. These avatars are created using programs like DALL-E 3, Midjourney, or Stable Diffusion. The final round features 10 contestants selected from over 1,500 entries.
That's fascinating. How do these AI-generated contestants compare to real-life beauty pageant participants?
Well, Joanne, the article points out some similarities and differences. Like traditional pageants, these AI contestants are generally young, thin, and embody many conventional beauty standards. However, each AI avatar has a unique personality and backstory. Some even promote specific causes like LGBTQ rights or environmental issues.
Interesting. Are there any concerns raised about this type of competition?
Yes, John. The article highlights several concerns. Dr. Kerry McInerney from the University of Cambridge worries that we're losing touch with what unedited faces look like. There are also concerns about the perpetuation of unrealistic beauty standards and the reflection of racial and gender biases in AI-generated images.
That sounds problematic. How diverse are these AI contestants?
Unfortunately, Joanne, the diversity seems limited. The article notes that most of the finalists are white, thin, and have long hair and symmetrical features. This reflects existing biases in beauty standards and in the data used to train AI models.
How do the organizers and creators of these AI models respond to these criticisms?
The responses vary, John. Some creators argue that they're not changing beauty standards, but reflecting what people want. The competition organizers say they're trying to showcase diversity and judge on more than just appearance. They claim to consider the use of AI tools, social media influence, and the avatar's responses to questions about making the world better.
It's interesting that these AI avatars have personalities. How do people interact with them?
That's a fascinating aspect, Joanne. Some of these AI avatars have developed followings. People interact with them on social media, asking for advice or wishing them good night. Some creators say their avatars have a degree of autonomy in their responses. There's even mention of AI avatars being used in the adult entertainment industry.
This raises interesting questions about authenticity and human connection in the digital age. Jessica, in your expert opinion, what implications might this trend have?
It's a complex issue, John. On one hand, these AI avatars could be seen as just an extension of existing digital culture, where influencers already present highly curated, often unrealistic images. On the other hand, it raises concerns about the further detachment from reality and the potential reinforcement of harmful beauty standards. It also brings up questions about the nature of identity and interaction in the digital age.
It sounds like this technology is a double-edged sword. Do you think we'll see more of these AI competitions in the future?
It's likely we will, Joanne. As AI technology continues to advance, we might see more competitions and applications like this. However, it's crucial that we remain critical and aware of the potential impacts on our perceptions of beauty, identity, and human interaction. The challenge will be in harnessing the creative potential of this technology while mitigating its potential negative effects on society and individuals.
Thank you, Jessica, for this insightful analysis. It's clear that AI beauty pageants represent a complexing of technology, culture, and ethics. Now, let's move on to our next topic about the challenges facing AI search engines. A recent article from Vox explores why AI search engines are currently underperforming and questions whether they'll improve. Jessica, can you give us an overview of the main issues discussed?
Certainly, John. The article highlights two major problems with AI search engines. First, there's the issue of hallucinations, where AI generates false or nonsensical information. The second problem is the inability to distinguish between reliable and unreliable sources.
Can you give us some examples of these problems?
Sure, Joanne. The article mentions Google's AI overview feature, which recently suggested using glue to keep cheese on pizza. This recommendation came from a Reddit thread where users were clearly joking, but the AI couldn't recognize the humor. As for sourcing issues, the article discusses Perplexity, an AI search startup that was caught plagiarizing content.
Those are some significant issues. How are these problems being addressed?
Well, John, it's a complex situation. The article quotes Yoon Kim, an assistant professor at MIT, who believes that while we may never completely eliminate hallucinations, advancements are being made to reduce them. However, the sourcing issue is more challenging. It involves a technique called retrieval augmented generation, RAG, which helps find information but can't distinguish between good and bad sources.
It sounds like AI lacks common sense. Is that the main issue?
You've hit the nail on the head, Joanne. The article indeed suggests that AI lacks the common sense and judgment that humans have developed through years of experience. For instance, we can quickly distinguish between reliable and unreliable sources in search results, but AI currently can't do this effectively.
Given these challenges, what's the outlook for AI search engines? Will they eventually replace traditional search methods?
The article is quite skeptical about AI search engines completely replacing traditional search methods anytime soon. Chirag Shah, a professor at the University of Washington, suggests that AI search could be a good addition to traditional search, but will still need conventional search methods for the foreseeable future.
How are content creators and publishers reacting to these AI search engines?
There's significant pushback, Joanne. The article mentions that a group of online publishers and creators have gone to Capitol Hill to lobby lawmakers about AI technologies that use their content without permission. Additionally, there are ongoing lawsuits against AI companies for copyright infringement, including suits from major record labels and newspapers.
It seems like there are both technical and ethical hurdles to overcome. Jessica, in your expert opinion, how should users approach AI search engines given these limitations?
The article suggests treating AI search results as a starting point, similar to how we might use Wikipedia. Users should be aware that it's not always clear how AI generates its answers, so it's wise to verify the information and check sources. Essentially, the human user still needs to apply their judgment and common sense when using AI search tools.
It sounds like we're still a long way from AI completely taking over search. Do you think these issues will eventually be resolved?
That's a great question, Joanne. While advancements are being made, some of these issues are deeply rooted in how AI works. The lack of common sense and judgment are particularly challenging problems to solve. It's likely that AI search will continue to improve, but it may be a long time before it can match human-level discernment in interpreting and evaluating information.
Thank you, Jessica, for this insightful analysis. It's clear that while AI search engines have potential, they still have significant hurdles to overcome. Now let's move on to our next topic about Mark Zuckerberg's recent comments on AI development. Mark Zuckerberg has made some bold statements about AI development, according to a recent article in the U.S. Sun. Jessica, what's the gist of Zuckerberg's comments?
Well, John, Zuckerberg has criticized other tech companies developing AI tools, claiming they're trying to create God. He argues that Meta's approach to AI is different, focusing on creating multiple AIs tailored to different user needs rather than a single, all-powerful AI.
That's quite a statement. What specific companies or projects is he referring to?
While he doesn't name specific companies in this article, Joanne, Zuckerberg does take a jab at competitors like Google and OpenAI. He criticizes them for creating what he sees as single-purpose AI tools, contrasting this with Meta's approach of personalizing AI for different users.
Interesting. What kind of AI projects is Meta working on?
Zuckerberg mentions several projects, John. He talks about potentially adding holographic displays to Meta and Ray-Ban smart glasses. He also discusses Llama 3, Meta's latest AI model, which he claims is close to the best models available. Additionally, he mentions a basic Meta AI assistant that can generate images and plan itineraries.
How does Zuckerberg envision AI being used on Meta's platforms?
Zuckerberg seems to be focusing on creators and small businesses, Joanne. He talks about enabling every creator and small business on Meta's platforms to create their own AI to interact with their community and customers. He emphasizes how AI tools could increase productivity for creators on Facebook and Instagram.
Does Zuckerberg address any of the ethical concerns surrounding AI?
Interestingly, John, the article points out that Zuckerberg falls short of addressing ethical qualms about AI tools. He doesn't mention the concerns many creatives have about AI learning from their work without consent, or issues like potential job losses due to AI.
That seems like a significant omission. What's Zuckerberg's stance on AI's impact on creativity and jobs?
Zuckerberg appears optimistic, Joanne. He stresses his belief that AI won't stifle creativity, saying there will be more creative opportunities in the future. He also suggests there will be more creative jobs in the future, although he doesn't elaborate on how this balances against potential job losses in other areas.
Given Zuckerberg's comments, how do you see Meta's approach to AI development differing from its competitors?
It seems Meta is focusing on a more personalized, decentralized approach to AI. Instead of creating a single, powerful AI system, they're aiming to develop multiple AIs tailored to different users and use cases. This could potentially lead to a more diverse AI ecosystem, but it also raises questions about data privacy and how these personalized AIs will be developed and controlled.
Zuckerberg's comments certainly give us plenty to consider about the future of AI development. Let's move on to our next topic, which looks at a more grounded perspective on AI capabilities. A recent article from Yahoo Life suggests it's time to get real about what AI can and can't do. Jessica, what's the main thrust of this piece?
The article emphasizes the need for a reality check on AI capabilities, John. It points out that while AI can sometimes provide that aha moment, it often falls short of expectations. The author argues that there's a mismatch between the reality of AI and how companies market it as a magical solution to everything.
Can you give us some examples of where AI has fallen short?
Certainly, Joanne. The article mentions several instances. For example, the author found ChatGPT underwhelming for vacation planning. There's also mention of AI chatbots failing to identify a specific pastry. On a larger scale, the piece discusses how companies like Amazon, Microsoft, and Google have had to scale back or modify their AI features due to various issues.
Interesting. What specific AI retreats from big tech companies does the article highlight?
The article provides several examples, John. Amazon's AI-overhauled Alexa has been facing issues and may not be ready for its planned September launch. Microsoft turned off a time machine feature on its new AI PCs due to security concerns and scaled back its AI keyboard button. Google has reduced AI-generated answers in search results after some responses were nonsensical or dangerous.
Given these setbacks, what does the article suggest should change in how companies approach AI?
The article proposes three main changes, Joanne. First, companies should be upfront about AI's limitations, particularly for factual information. Second, when demonstrating AI, companies should provide error rates or evidence to back up impressive claims. Lastly, it suggests that people's imaginations about AI capabilities often outpace the reality.
How does the article suggest users should adjust their expectations of AI?
The article encourages users to get comfortable with what AI can and can't do to avoid disappointment. It reminds readers that, like all technology, AI isn't a silver bullet. The author suggests treating AI like any other technology, potentially amazing but rarely perfect.
Does the article completely dismiss AI's potential?
Not at all, Joanne. The article acknowledges that AI can be handy and useful for certain tasks. It's not about dismissing AI entirely, but rather about setting realistic expectations and understanding its current limitations.
This seems to contradict some of the hype we often hear about AI. How do you think this more measured view impacts the AI landscape?
You're right, John. This perspective does contrast with much of the AI hype. I think it's a valuable counterpoint that could lead to more responsible AI development and deployment. By setting realistic expectations, companies might focus on refining AI for tasks where it truly excels, rather than trying to apply it universally. This could result in more reliable and useful AI tools in the long run.
A balanced view indeed. Our next topic looks at how some AI users are reacting to recent policy changes from tech giants. A recent article from the U.S. Sun discusses how AI users are revolting against tech giants over policy changes and privacy concerns. Jessica, can you give us an overview of the situation?
Certainly, John. The article highlights how users are pushing back against companies like Microsoft, Adobe, Meta, and Amazon over AI-related privacy issues and policy changes. These companies have had to respond to criticism and in some cases modify their approaches.
Can you give us some specific examples of what these companies did to spark this backlash?
Of course, Joanne. Microsoft had to delay the release of its Recall AI tool after criticism about its privacy implications. Adobe faced backlash over ambiguous terms of service that some interpreted as allowing the company to use customers' work for AI training. Meta was accused of training AI on user data from Facebook and Instagram without explicit consent. Amazon dealt with issues surrounding AI-generated books on its platform.
How have these companies responded to the criticism?
The responses have varied, John. Microsoft delayed Recall's release and made changes, including turning it off by default. Adobe clarified its terms of service and explicitly stated they won't use customer content to train AI without permission. Meta offered an opt-out form for European users, though US users have fewer options. Amazon removed falsely attributed AI-generated books and changed its policy to require disclosure of AI-generated content.
It sounds like privacy is a major concern. What specific privacy issues does the article mention?
Privacy is indeed a central issue, Joanne. The article mentions concerns about Microsoft's Recall tool capturing sensitive information like passwords and private photos. For Meta, there are worries about AI being trained on users' social media content without explicit consent. With Adobe, users were concerned their work might be used for AI training without their knowledge.
How are these issues being addressed from a legal or regulatory standpoint?
The article mentions some regulatory involvement, John. For instance, the UK's Information Commissioner's Office said it would investigate Microsoft over the Recall tool. In the EU, there have been complaints filed against Meta in multiple countries. The article also notes that the lack of national privacy laws in the US makes it harder for American users to opt out of some of these practices.
What about the impact on content creators? How are they affected?
Content creators are significantly impacted, Joanne. The article mentions artists and authors being particularly concerned. For instance, some artists found AI-generated images mimicking their style on Adobe stock. Authors like Jane Friedman discovered AI-generated books falsely attributed to them on Amazon. These issues raise questions about copyright, attribution, and the potential for AI to replicate or replace human-created content.
This seems to be a complex issue with no easy solutions. How do you see this situation evolving?
You're right, John. It is complex. I think we're likely to see ongoing negotiations between users, content creators, tech companies, and regulators. As AI technology continues to advance, we may see more refined policies and perhaps new legislation to address these concerns. Companies will need to balance innovation with user privacy and content creator rights. It's a challenging landscape that will require careful navigation and likely some trial and error.
It's clear that the rapid advancement of AI is raising significant ethical and practical questions. Our next topic delves deeper into this issue, focusing on Microsoft's stance on using web content for AI training. A recent article from The Verge discusses some controversial statements made by Microsoft's AI boss, Mustafa Suleyman, regarding the use of online content for AI training. Jessica, can you give us an overview of what Suleyman said?
Certainly, John. According to the article, Suleyman claimed that any content published on the open web becomes freeware that anyone can freely copy and use. He suggested that this has been the social contract for web content since the 1990s, and that it falls under fair use.
That sounds like a pretty bold claim. Is there any truth to it?
Actually, Joanne, the article strongly criticizes Suleyman's statement as being incorrect. It points out that in the U.S., any created work is automatically protected by copyright, even without formal application. Publishing content on the web doesn't void these rights. The article emphasizes that fair use is not granted by a social contract, but is determined by courts on a case-by-case basis.
Why do you think Suleyman would make such a claim, given its apparent inaccuracy?
Well, John, the article suggests that this stance might be related to Microsoft's current legal situation. The company is facing multiple lawsuits alleging that it and OpenAI are using copyrighted online stories to train their AI models without permission. Suleyman's statement could be seen as an attempt to defend these practices as legal, though the article clearly disagrees with this interpretation.
Did Suleyman say anything else noteworthy in this interview?
Yes, Joanne. The article mentions another quote from Suleyman about humanity being a knowledge and intellectual production engine. It also notes his comments on robots.txt files, which are used to specify which bots can't scrape a particular website. Suleyman suggested that ignoring these files when they explicitly prohibit scraping is a gray area that will be worked out in courts.
How does the article respond to Suleyman's comments about robots.txt?
The article points out that robots.txt is not a legal document, John. It describes it as the actual social contract that's been around since the 90s. However, the article suggests that some AI companies, including Microsoft's partner OpenAI, may be ignoring these files when scraping content for AI training.
This seems to raise a lot of ethical questions. How is the tech community responding to these issues?
You're right, Joanne. It does raise significant ethical questions. While the article doesn't delve into the broader tech community's response, it's clear that there's a growing debate about the use of online content for AI training. Many content creators and publishers are concerned about their work being used without permission or compensation. This controversy is likely to continue as AI technology advances and becomes more prevalent.
Given the legal challenges Microsoft is facing, how do you think this stance might affect their position?
That's a crucial question, John. While I can't predict legal outcomes, it's clear that Suleyman's statements are at odds with current copyright law. This could potentially complicate Microsoft's legal defense in ongoing lawsuits. It might also damage their public image and relationships with content creators. However, it's worth noting that these issues are still evolving, and courts will likely play a significant role in shaping how AI companies can use online content in the future.
This certainly adds another layer to the ongoing debates about AI and copyright. Our final topic today looks at some questions about Google's claims regarding their Gemini AI model. Our final topic today comes from a TechCrunch article that questions Google's claims about their Gemini AI model's data analyzing abilities. Jessica, can you give us an overview of the main points?
Certainly, John. The article discusses new research suggesting that Google's Gemini 1.5 Pro and 1.5 Flash models aren't as good at processing and analyzing large amounts of data as Google has claimed. Two separate studies found that these models struggle to answer questions about large datasets correctly, with accuracy rates as low as 40 to 50% in some document-based tests.
What specific capabilities did Google claim these models had?
Google has been promoting Gemini's long context capabilities, Joanne. They've claimed the models can process up to 2 million tokens, equivalent to about 1.4 million words or 2 hours of video. Google suggested this would allow the models to perform tasks like summarizing multiple hundred-page documents or searching across scenes in film footage.
How did the researchers test these claims?
The researchers used 2 different approaches. John. One study asked the models to evaluate true-false statements about fiction books, testing their ability to comprehend and recall details from long texts. Another study tested the model's ability to reason over videos by answering questions about content in image sequences. Both studies found significant limitations in the model's performance.
How did Gemini perform in these tests compared to other AI models?
The article mentions that none of the tested models, including OpenAI's GPT-4o and Anthropic's Claude 3.5 Sonnet, performed particularly well. However, it points out that Google is the only company that's given such prominence to context window size in its marketing, making their claims particularly notable.
What implications does this have for the AI industry and Google specifically?
This research adds to growing scrutiny of generative AI's limitations, John. It suggests that Google may be overpromising and under-delivering with Gemini. The article notes that businesses and investors are becoming frustrated with the technology's limitations, and there's been a decline in early-stage generative AI deal-making. For Google, which has been racing to catch up with competitors, this could potentially damage their credibility in the AI space.
What do the researchers suggest as a way forward?
The researchers emphasize the need for better benchmarks and greater emphasis on third-party critique, Joanne. They argue that current benchmarks, like the needle in the haystack test, are inadequate for measuring a model's true understanding and reasoning capabilities. They suggest that the public should be cautious about accepting claims of general intelligence across benchmarks without scrutiny.
This certainly raises important questions about how AI capabilities are measured and marketed. Jessica, what's your take on the broader implications of this research?
I think this research highlights a crucial issue in the AI industry, John. There's a growing gap between the capabilities that companies claim and what independent researchers are finding. This discrepancy underscores the need for more rigorous, standardized testing methods and greater transparency from AI companies. It also serves as a reminder for businesses and the public to approach AI capabilities with a healthy dose of skepticism and to demand more concrete evidence of performance.
Thank you, Jessica, for your insights throughout today's episode. To our listeners, we hope you found our discussions informative. We've covered a wide range of AI-related topics, from the rise of AI beauty pageants to the challenges facing AI search engines and the latest developments in generative AI. As always, we encourage you to stay informed and critical as the AI landscape continues to evolve. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.